Assassin's Creed is now at a turning point with many projects in the works that could change the franchise for good or bad, namely Assassin's Creed Shadows, which I explained in my other video. Assassin's Creed was not like that in the 2000s. It was an unknown thing because it was not made yet. In 2007, the first Assassin's Creed game was made. It was originally a Prince of Persia sequel project that became a new IP focusing on stealth/social stealth, parkour, and history with a slight twist for the game. Let's talk about them, starting with stealth/social stealth. Stealth is the art of being quiet and moving around in an environment to reach a different place without being seen. Using the walls of a room or a fence as cover while moving and the rooftops of a building to move in and out quickly. With stealth, covering yourself as an assassin in Assassin's Creed 2 and the other games, you also had that scroll thing on top of buildings and you could hide in that too if you were ever caught and the enemies don't have direct sight on you. That's that yellow thing. In later missions, you were not in the city but outside in the wilderness, where you could use the bushes and trees to your advantage. In Assassin's Creed Shadow, these bushes will not be as big as in other games, where you will just be able to crouch on them. Instead, one of the main protagonists of the game, Nawe, has to lie down and actually cover inside these bushes while crouching, or you can just call these tall grass. There were also later tools that would be added to an assassin's arsenal or items to use for stealth. One of the first ones that we ever saw was the throwing knife. They would allow you to assassinate a target from a distance, and later you have to make sure that they do not have armor on them where you want to hit them. For an example, you have Assassin's Creed Mirage. The throwing knives became a standard tool in an Assassin's Creed pretty much from the beginning of the franchise. Another tool that the assassins would use in stealth is a smoke bomb, allowing you to move in a place where you would be spotted and giving you a temporary safe spot. But on the contrary, it would be loud and the girls would be able to see the smoke itself and they would be shocked by it if they have seen it, which is also a bit of a downside. This tool would be used to make escape runs if an assassin was ever caught by a Templar or another faction. In Assassin's Creed Mirage, you also have a red sandbag, and once hit, it would make a smoke come out, and it will be the same as a regular smoke bomb. It is just tied to a specific location. There are also the many bombs Ezio used in Assassin's Creed Revelations. One of these multiple bombs is the stun bomb. It stuns the enemy using a flashing light. In Assassin's Creed Unity, it will make no sound, being a great choice for making groups smaller without being spotted by them, but these would not leave any smoke behind, making you first think critically about how to use one. Another thing that an assassin uses in stealth would be to whistle. This was used to make enemies hear you and come in your direction to where you could assassinate them easily. This is also a staple that has been in the franchise from the beginning. Another item that the assassins used for stealth is the sleep dart. The sleep dart is used to make an enemy fall asleep without killing them. This was not a solution and only a short time answer that would alert enemies if they were in a group which was at least of 2. With the sleep darts, there were also berserk darts, namely in Assassin's Creed Black Flag. The berserk dart would make the enemy hit with it fight anything they might see, making chaos and allowing you to make a group distracted by fighting their own teammates. Assassin's Creed Mirage also added a noisemaker. It would allow Basim to throw it at a chosen location and it would be used to make noise and attract enemies. I don't really use the noisemaker, so I can't go further into it. Using all the tools and their environment to their advantage, assassins could enter a restricted zone that had security without being seen and killing their targets. All done in the shadows, serving the light just as they wanted. Not to be a part of history, but to make it happen in the name of freedom. With stealth, an assassin would be able to obviously enter a building, but to enter the building, they would need parkour. It is the art of making your way through the cities that allows you to save time. In Assassin's Creed games, in the time places that they would take in with different cities and different architecture, every bit of movement needed to be thought out thoroughly with just a little bit of difference. Let's first talk about the movement in Assassin's Creed 2 and its different cities. The movement in Florence has rooftops that you can climb up from boxes that the game had placed for movement. To then reaching out from the poles that would be stuck out of buildings and then using them to reach the rooftops of buildings. You would also have a contrast with the Auditore mansion where the rooftops were close together and you could just jump from them. This was also in the whole of the game, but it was much more significant, which would allow you for quick movements of the area, and it was done thoughtfully because the Auditore are obviously assassins and the mansion and the whole city that's around it is a assassin stronghold, which would explain everything. This would again be contrasted in a later city of the game in Assassin's Creed 2 that would completely change the buildings with the city of Venice. These buildings were gigantic for a city of its time, and they had many poles sticking out to allow for movement from the lower side where you could also jump into the ocean to completely high up 15 meters. Just like the city of Paris in Assassin's Creed Unity. With a flourishing city that is in riot, the streets are filled in chaos with many people living their lives. From merchants trying to make it day to day to the Templars who stay in their mansions and manors. The streets were massive and encompassing. The movement starts with the window on the ground floor or an open door, allowing you for a movement that would be completely action-filled and would look beautiful. You also had the infamous boxes that you could climb up from, and movement throughout the city is just by planks that are stuck out a bit from the ground level, and you could also climb up to the buildings by just regular climbing. And then you would reach the rooftops filled with pipes that stick out and big roofs that go higher on a big angle. The rooftops in Paris also had ropes going from building to building, but they would also have an open window and you would be able to jump on them and run through the roof, which would make the movement completely different from anything that we had seen before. Later, the parkour system Ubisoft made in titles following Origins and ending with Mirage became pretty much you can climb anything you want. It completely devalued the aspect of parkour, which together with other things, it made the franchise to what it is now. Origins, Odyssey and Valhalla made it so that every mountain, every building, anything was just at the reach of your hands. and you did not need to make a way through the city. If there was even a big city with big parkour, it just ruined in the previous titles, where you did not need to think and were rewarded with making a good eject with Ezio, for example. The parkour in Assassin's Creed 2 was so good, in fact people made compilations about just moving from point A to B in the most flashiest way possible. And this was done because the game, it allowed you to make mistakes. It did not want you to just reach the character and wait 10 seconds before making a jump off a ledge. It just jumped when you pressed jump, and it did not automatically make you reach a ledge. You had to press a button to make sure your arm was out. You could change the direction of your arm while in free fall, and that was the beauty of parkour. But now they just made a cool animation and the fall damage in Odyssey. I don't have footage for this, but it is non-existent if you upgrade your character. Parkour is just not inside a city, but from point A to B. In fact, Assassin's Creed also has parkour in the wilderness. The first example for this is Assassin's Creed 3. It showed trees on the Ubisoft UK reveal trailer. It just showed Connor climbing from tree to tree, and in that game it is possible. And another example of this is Assassin's Creed Black Flag. It had an open world format with lots of islands. They had trees that hung down to the ground, and it allowed you to move from tree to tree. In Assassin's Creed Origins and other games, where the Ubisoft format became more RPG focused, the open world was gigantic, and most of it was outside cities, obviously, and so they just gave you a horse and a follow direction, which in Odyssey does not work. I don't have footage for this, but in Mirage is the same thing. It just doesn't work. It moves towards that place, towards your marker, and then it just follows the road from there, as if I don't need to go to that single viewpoint in the desert. Something that did not later become planned because it couldn't is the history. The history in Assassin's Creed games that they implement from the real world, that you have students in schools coming to class for a presentation and showing footage of Assassin's Creed games. For history to be recreated in this way, it needed to be exact, because history is also massive and is not used by games that much. There are games out there that use history, like Call of Duty for example. Assassin's Creed uses the turning points in history as the main narrative, and the main character in those games is native to the place where the history is taking place in. Ezio in Italy, Arno in France, and Connor in America. The characters come from the place and that they fight for the freedom of their country, but also the world. Playing games in historical moments also grounds the story a bit with all the Easter stuff that is used in the modern day. The way that the games allow you to visit history is also interesting. There is a machine made in Assassin's Creed's own world which is called the Animus. It allows you to take your genetic memory from your DNA and enter the world of your ancestors. Later, in Assassin's Creed Black Flag, they use Desmond's DNA obtained from the 2012 incident, and the Animus would take his DNA and not the user of the Animus. In Assassin's Creed Unity, Abstergo Industries made a video game that would use the Animus and change things to tell a better version of history, more like their version. In Assassin's Creed Unity, you would also play the game in a person that is playing the game of Abstergo Industries, and they gave him access to history that was twisted. The assassins would request your help in uncovering the history of the French Revolution for the Pieces of Eden. With this, the game had pauses in the story because Obstacle was almost going to find you and you needed to hide deeper in history to run in the digital space away from them. The reason in the games why the people were constantly looking into history was to find the pieces of Eden, devices made by the Isu to basically control humans. Later, there would be a discovery made that the sun was going to send a solar flare out that would basically burn the whole world. As the Isu population was also diminishing, they made many devices and some procreated with other humans, making the first hybrids in history. When the time came, Isus also built temples and more buildings that they were able to hide underground and be sheltered by the sun. This would work and humanity was able to survive. But the sun would come back with the same flares later in time, although not now at least. With the sun's energies going back to a stable level, humanity emerged from their temples and started rebuilding, and that's where the history of the games chronologically started. So Ubisoft used the stealth, the parkour, and the history. All of these came together and became the games that we love right now, and that's how they did it. How Assassin's Creed became so popular. That's it for the video, guys. Let me know what 3 things I talked about made you fall in love with Assassin's Creed more than the other. For me, it's the stealth. Thanks for watching.